Her ex mocked her beside his rich fiancée, certain the entire room would watch her break. Instead, the most feared man in Chicago crossed the floor, placed one hand at her waist, and claimed her with a kiss before everyone. Avery Collins had spent 3 years rebuilding the parts of herself Grant Mercer destroyed. Yet beneath the chandeliers of a crowded engagement dinner, one cruel smile was enough to drag her back into every old wound. Then Roman DeLuca looked at her as if he saw the strength she had forgotten. This is more than a story about revenge or dangerous attraction. It is about the moment a woman stops asking why she was not chosen and begins asking whether the man who rejected her was ever worthy of her. Stay until the end. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. 3 hours before Roman DeLuca silenced the room with one kiss, Avery Collins stood barefoot in her Lakeview apartment and promised herself she would not cry. She said it once while applying mascara, then again after her hand slipped and left a black mark beneath her right eye. I will not cry tonight. Her reflection did not look convinced. The apartment was small enough that the kitchen table could be seen from the bedroom mirror. Casebooks covered nearly every inch of it. Civil procedure sat open beside a cold cup of coffee. Evidence law rested beneath a stack of handwritten flashcards. A yellow notice from the electric company peeked out from under them, its corner visible like an accusation Avery had not yet found the courage to answer. She had worked 9 hours that day at Palmer, and Briggs spent her lunch break reviewing practice questions and come home with exactly 47 minutes to get ready for Maya's engagement dinner. Most women would have called the evening a celebration. Avery had been counting it down like an appointment with a surgeon. The green dress lay across her bed. It was simple, fitted at the waist, and slightly older than she wanted anyone to know. More importantly, Grant Mercer had never seen it. That mattered. The blue dress reminded her of the night Grant first said he loved her. The black one belonged to the version of Avery who had stood beside him at corporate events and smiled while he introduced her as someone who worked at a law office. The cream dress still carried a faint stain from the restaurant where he ended their relationship and called the decision practical. The green dress held no memory of him. Avery slipped it over her head and smoothed the fabric down her hips. On the dresser rested a silver ring with a narrow band and a small oval stone. It had belonged to her grandmother, the woman who had taught Avery that intelligence was not something she needed permission to use. When Avery was 16, she had watched her grandmother challenge a landlord who tried to keep a security deposit from a single mother in their building. She had not raised her voice. She had simply placed 3 printed pages on his desk, quoted the law, and waited. The landlord returned the money that afternoon. Avery had decided then that power did not always wear a suit or carry a weapon. Sometimes it carried a folder and knew exactly which sentence mattered. She slid the silver ring onto her finger. Her phone rang before she could reach for her shoes. Maya's face appeared on the screen. Avery answered with a brightness she did not feel. The bride has time to call ordinary people. Not the bride yet, Maya said. And you are not ordinary. Voices moved behind her. Glasses clinked. Someone called for Daniel. Maya lowered her voice. Are you still at home? I'm leaving in 5 minutes. You said that 20 minutes ago. I was emotionally preparing. For traffic, Avery stared at herself in the mirror. For everything. Maya went quiet. That silence told Avery the call was not about her arrival time. What happened? She asked. Maya exhaled. Grant is here. Avery's fingers tightened around the phone. The room did not change. The radiator still clicked beneath the window. A car horn sounded on the street. Somewhere above her, a child ran across a hardwood floor. Still, the apartment seemed to narrow around her. With Vanessa, Avery asked. Yes. Avery closed her eyes. She had known Grant might attend. Daniel's family worked with half the developers in Chicago, including the Sinclairs. Knowing something was possible had not prepared her for hearing that it was real. Maya continued quickly. I can ask Daniel to handle it. Grant was invited through his company not because we wanted him there. He can leave before you arrive. No. Avery, it is your engagement dinner. That does not mean you have to stand in the same room as the man who broke you. Avery looked at the bar exam books on her table. Grant had called that dream unrealistic. He had said becoming an attorney would take too long and cost too much. He had once laughed when she told him she wanted her own practice. 3 years later, she was still studying. 3 years later, he was still capable of making her hands shake without being present. "I'm not letting him take another night from me," Avery said. Maya's voice softened. "Leaving is not the same as losing." "I know." She said it too quickly. Maya heard it. "Do you?" Avery picked up one of her shoes and forced her foot into it. "I will smile. I will congratulate you. I will eat something expensive that Daniel's father is paying for. Then I will go home and study constitutional law until I forget Grant exists. That sounds deeply unhealthy. It also sounds productive." Maya laughed, but the concern remained beneath it. "If he says anything to you, walk away." "I will. You do not have to prove anything." Avery looked at her reflection again. The truth rose in her throat, bitter and familiar. She did not want to prove anything to Grant. She wanted to prove she could stand near him without becoming the woman he had left behind. "I'll be there soon," she said. After the call ended, Avery remained in front of the mirror for another full minute. Then she picked up her coat and left. Chicago had turned silver beneath the early winter sky. The sidewalks glistened from an afternoon rain. Headlights stretched across the pavement in long, blurred lines. Wind moved between the buildings and found every opening in Avery's coat as she hurried toward the train. She told herself she was thinking about the dinner. Instead, she remembered a silver watch. Grant had worn it almost every day they were together. It had belonged to his father, and he treated it with greater tenderness than he ever showed most people. Whenever Avery spoke about work, he checked it. Not dramatically. Grant was too polished for that. He would lower his eyes for half a second, just long enough for her to notice, then look back at her with a patient expression. She had learned to shorten her stories. She had learned to apologize when she became excited. She had learned to say, "It's not important," before he could decide that for her. On the train downtown, a man in a dark wool coat gave up his seat to an elderly woman. Avery watched the gesture and remembered Grant telling her that kindness was valuable only when someone important noticed it. She had laughed when he said it. Later she realized he had not been joking. Their relationship had not ended suddenly. It had thinned. First came canceled dinners, then unexplained weekends. Then a new interest in charity galas hosted by families whose names appeared on buildings. Grant began using phrases like strategic circle and long-term positioning. He told Avery she should invest in better clothes if she wanted to accompany him. When she reminded him that most of her money went toward tuition and exam preparation, he sighed. "You cannot expect the world to take you seriously if you look like you are waiting for permission to enter it." At the time, Avery had believed he was trying to help. That was the cruelty of Grant's affection. He could wound her and convince her the pain was evidence of improvement. The final conversation happened in a coffee shop near the river. Grant arrived 17 minutes late. Avery remembered because she had watched the door every time it opened. He sat across from her, placed his phone face down, and ordered nothing. "We want different lives," he said. Avery had stared at him. "We live together." Not really. She had not understood what that meant. Grant explained that he needed someone comfortable with the kind of world he was entering, someone who understood ambition, someone who could contribute to the future he was building. Avery had asked whether 2 years together counted as part of that future. Grant looked at his watch. 2 weeks later, a photograph appeared online. Grant stood beside Vanessa Sinclair at a museum fundraiser, his hand resting at the base of her back. The caption called them Chicago's newest power couple. Avery learned later that they had met months before the breakup. Grant never admitted he had cheated. He did not need to. The train doors opened. Avery stepped onto the platform and pushed the memory away. The restaurant occupied the top floor of a restored building in River North. Brass lanterns framed the entrance. Through the glass, Avery could see chandeliers, white flowers, and people who looked as though they had never checked the price of anything before ordering it. She paused outside. Her reflection floated faintly over the glass. For 1 second, she considered turning around. Then the door opened from inside. Maya appeared in an ivory cocktail dress and pulled Avery into her arms. "You came. I said I would. You also said you would be on time. I wanted to give everyone a chance to admire the room before I arrived." Maya leaned back and studied her. "You look beautiful." Avery smiled. "So do you." Maya's happiness softened something inside her. The tension in Avery's shoulders loosened as she looked past the entrance and saw Daniel greeting relatives near the head table. This evening was not about Grant. It was about Maya, who had shared a bedroom with Avery during childhood summers and once punched a boy for calling Avery poor. Avery handed her coat to the attendant. "Where is he?" she asked quietly. Maya glanced toward the far side of the room. Grant stood near the windows. Vanessa was beside him in red. Even from a distance, the diamond on her hand caught the chandelier light. Grant had changed his suit, his haircut, and the shape of his smile. He had not changed the watch. Avery felt the old reaction before she could stop it. Her stomach tightened. Her lungs forgot how deeply they were supposed to breathe. Maya touched her arm. "You do not have to speak to him. I know. I can seat you on the opposite side of the room. That would help. And Daniel told the staff to keep the champagne coming. That will help more." Maya squeezed her hand. Then someone called her name and she was pulled back toward the arriving guests. Avery moved to the edge of the room. She greeted an aunt from Wisconsin, congratulated Daniel's parents, and accepted a glass of water because wine on an empty stomach would make her emotional. For a while, the evening became manageable. She admired the flowers. She helped Maya's grandmother find her place card. She thanked a server who brought her bread before the first course. Across the room, Grant laughed at something Vanessa's father said. Avery refused to look again. Near the bar, Roman DeLuca noticed her. He had arrived 15 minutes earlier and already regretted agreeing to attend. Daniel Whitmore's father had requested his presence as a gesture of respect before finalizing a freight agreement. Roman understood gestures. In his world, refusing one could carry more weight than offering it. So he came. He wore a black suit cut closely across his shoulders, a white shirt without a tie, and the expression of a man accustomed to rooms adjusting around him. 2 members of his security team waited outside in a black sport utility vehicle. Roman had entered alone because armed men at an engagement dinner tended to create the wrong atmosphere. It did not matter. People recognized him. An older developer approached and shook his hand with both of his. A city contractor nodded from a distance but did not come closer. 2 men near the windows stopped speaking when Roman passed. Daniel greeted him warmly. "I appreciate you coming. Your father made it sound mandatory." Daniel laughed. With him, it probably was. Roman accepted a bourbon he had no intention of drinking. He listened to Daniel speak about the wedding, the guest list, and the difficulties of merging 2 large families. Roman's attention shifted when a server nearly dropped a tray near the entrance. One guest stepped back to avoid the mess. A woman in green stepped forward. She caught 2 glasses before they fell, placed them on the tray, and asked the server whether he was all right. The server nodded, embarrassed. The woman smiled as though nothing had happened. No one applauded. No one important appeared to notice. Roman did. He asked Daniel who she was. Daniel followed his gaze. Avery Collins. Maya's cousin. Roman waited for more. Daniel gave him a knowing look. "She is single, if that is your next question." It wasn't. Of course not. Roman looked away. He had learned to distrust immediate interest. Desire was easy. Curiosity was more dangerous. He told himself Avery Collins was simply a woman in a crowded room. Then he noticed the man near the window staring at her. Grant Mercer. Roman knew the name because Mercer had attended 2 meetings with Sinclair Holdings and spoken far too much in both of them. Grant possessed the particular confidence of a man who had never been forced to test whether it was real. Vanessa said something to him. Grant answered without looking away from Avery. Then he took Vanessa's hand and began walking across the room. Roman watched. Avery saw them coming when they were 10 feet away. Her first instinct was to turn toward the nearest conversation and pretend she had not noticed. Grant would recognize the retreat. He would enjoy it. She stayed where she was. "Avery," he said. His voice was exactly the same. Warm enough to sound kind, controlled enough to deny cruelty later. Grant. He leaned forward as though they were old friends and kissed the air beside her cheek. "You look well. So do you." Vanessa waited beside him. Grant placed a hand lightly against her back. "Avery, this is Vanessa Sinclair, my fiancée." Vanessa smiled. "It was not openly unkind. That would have required effort. I have heard your name." Avery looked at Grant. "Only good things, I'm sure." Grant laughed. Vanessa's eyes moved over Avery's dress shoes and silver ring. Grant continued. Avery and I knew each other before my life became what it is now. There it was, the first cut. Delivered gently enough that no one could accuse him of holding the knife. Avery lifted her glass. We dated for 2 years. Vanessa's eyebrows rose. Really ancient history, Grant said. Avery felt several nearby guests become quieter. Vanessa looked almost amused. And what do you do, Avery? Before Avery could answer, Grant spoke. She works at the front desk of a law office. Avery stared at him. I'm a paralegal. Right, Grant said. Reception work with legal paperwork. Vanessa covered a smile with her wine glass. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Avery heard the old voice inside her. Do not make a scene. Do not embarrass Maya. Do not give him proof that he can still hurt you. She tried to speak. Nothing came. Grant glanced at the silver watch on his wrist. The movement was small. It struck harder than the insult. You always did have big plans, he said. Avery's fingers tightened around the glass. At the bar, Roman set down his bourbon. He had heard enough. People moved aside as he crossed the room. Avery did not see him until a shadow fell beside her. Grant's expression changed first. Roman stopped at Avery's side, close enough that she could feel the restrained force of his presence. He did not touch her. His gaze held hers. Do you trust me for 5 seconds, he asked quietly. Avery looked at the stranger, then at Grant's satisfied face. She gave the smallest nod. Roman's hand settled at her waist. He waited. She did not pull away. Then he kissed her. The room vanished into silence. For one breath, Avery forgot Grant, Vanessa, the chandeliers, and every promise she had made in front of her mirror. Her fingers closed around Roman's jacket. The kiss deepened by a fraction, enough to stop feeling like a rescue, enough to become a choice neither of them had expected. When Roman lifted his head, Avery could barely remember how to breathe. There you are, he said, as though he had been searching for her all evening. I was beginning to think you had changed your mind. Grant stared at him. DeLuca Roman turned slowly. You know each other. We used to date, Grant said. Roman looked back at Avery. Then I owe him my gratitude. Grant's jaw tightened. For what? For being careless enough to lose her. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Roman kept one hand at Avery's waist as he addressed the room with effortless calm. I have spent 6 months trying to convince this woman to marry me. She has the unfortunate habit of making me work for what I want. A few guests laughed nervously. Grant did not. I didn't realize Avery had started spending time with men in your line of business, he said. Roman's eyes cooled. My line of business moves half the freight your fiancé's family depends on. His voice lowered. And I remember the names of people who insult what stands under my protection. Grant's face lost its color. Roman leaned closer to Avery. Smile, he murmured. Your ex has finally realized who he was speaking to. Avery looked at Grant. For the first time that evening, he appeared uncertain. She smiled. Roman offered her his hand. We should leave before I forget this is someone else's celebration. Avery placed her hand in his. He guided her across the restaurant while every eye followed them. Behind her, Grant found his voice. Avery, you don't know what kind of man he is. Roman opened the door. Cold air swept over her face. No, Avery said. I don't. Roman looked back at Grant. But he does. The restaurant door closed behind them. For several seconds, Avery stood beneath the awning listening to traffic hiss over wet pavement. Then she pulled her hand from Roman's. You kissed me. Roman calmly buttoned his coat. You agreed. I nodded because I thought you were going to say something. I did say something, with your mouth on mine. A faint trace of amusement touched his face. Avery pointed toward the restaurant. Who are you? A black vehicle waited at the curb. 2 men sat inside, both watching Roman with the alert stillness of trained guards. Roman opened the rear passenger door, but Avery did not move. That depends, he said, meeting her eyes, on whether you want the answer your ex would give or the truth. Roman kept one hand on the open car door while Avery studied the men inside. Neither of them looked away. They were not chauffeurs. They had the still posture of people trained to notice exits, hands, shadows, and sudden movement. One wore a dark coat buttoned to the throat. The other had a faint scar along his jaw and an earpiece hidden beneath his collar. Avery folded her arms. I am not getting into that car. Roman did not argue. He closed the door. The man behind the wheel glanced at him through the mirror, waiting for an order. Roman tapped the roof twice. The vehicle pulled away from the curb without hesitation. Avery watched the red taillights disappear into traffic. "You sent them away. You said you were not getting in. Most men would have tried to convince me. Most men hear no and assume it is the beginning of a negotiation. And you do not." Roman slipped his hands into the pockets of his coat. "I hear it as an answer." The reply unsettled her because she believed him. Cold wind swept along the sidewalk and pressed the green fabric of her dress against her knees. Avery rubbed her bare arms beneath her coat and looked toward the restaurant entrance. Through the glass, silhouettes moved beneath the chandeliers. She could not see Grant clearly, but she could imagine him explaining the scene to Vanessa, changing details until he became the victim of some elaborate humiliation. Avery had spent years believing that Grant's ability to reshape a story meant he controlled the truth. Tonight, for once, he had lost the room. She turned back to Roman. "You still kissed a stranger?" Roman's expression changed slightly. The amusement vanished. "Yes." "You did not know whether I would panic?" "No." "You did not know whether I had someone waiting for me?" "No." "You did not know anything about me?" "I knew enough." Avery's eyes narrowed. "You knew I was being humiliated. I knew you were trying not to ruin someone else's celebration while a man used your restraint as permission to hurt you. The accuracy of it struck too close." Avery looked away. Cars moved through the intersection. A taxi slowed, then continued when neither of them raised a hand. Roman stepped beneath the awning beside her. "I intended to interrupt him," he said. "The rest was instinct. Your instincts are aggressive, I have been told." That was not a compliment. I did not mistake it for one. Avery pressed her lips together, fighting the unreasonable urge to smile. Roman's gaze dropped briefly to her mouth. The air between them shifted. Avery noticed it and became angry with herself for noticing. "You embarrassed him," she said. "That was intentional. You also made me part of a lie." Roman was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "I should not have done that without giving you a choice you fully understood." Avery looked at him. He did not sound ashamed of kissing her. He sounded ashamed of taking control of the moment. There was a difference. "I am not sorry that I stopped him." Roman continued. "I am sorry I used you to do it." She had expected charm. She had expected excuses. Grant had always apologized by explaining why Avery had forced him to behave badly. He could transform remorse into accusation without changing his tone. Roman offered no excuse. The simplicity of it left her without the speech she had prepared. "If it happens again," Avery said, "you ask." Roman held her gaze. "If it happens again, I will ask." The words landed with more weight than they should have. Avery drew her coat more tightly around herself. "Good, good." Another silence settled between them. It was not comfortable. It was not entirely uncomfortable either. Across the street, a red sign flickered above a narrow diner squeezed between a closed pharmacy and a dry cleaner. Steam clouded the windows. A woman in a blue uniform refilled coffee behind the counter. Avery nodded toward it. "You owe me coffee." Roman looked at the sign. The letter N was burned out, leaving DIER glowing in the darkness. "I know places with better coffee." "I am sure you own places with better coffee." His eyes returned to her. "I do not own every restaurant in Chicago." That sounds like something a man who owns several restaurants would say. Roman glanced at the diner again. "You are serious. You kissed me in front of 40 people and told them I had rejected 6 months of marriage proposals. You can survive bad coffee." A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It changed his face more than she expected. "Lead the way." They crossed at the light. Roman walked on the side nearest traffic without making a performance of it. Avery noticed because Grant had always walked ahead as though the destination mattered more than the person beside him. The diner bell rang when they entered. Warm air wrapped around them, carrying the smells of coffee-grilled onions and something sweet baking near the kitchen. There were 6 occupied tables. A tired nurse ate pie near the window. 2 college students shared fries in a booth. A delivery driver sat at the counter with both hands around a mug. No one looked up at Roman. The lack of recognition seemed to relax something in him. A waitress in her late 50s approached with 2 menus beneath her arm. "Sit wherever you want, honey." Roman looked over his shoulder. Avery smiled. She means you. I understood. You looked uncertain. No one has called me honey in a long time. The waitress pointed toward a booth. There is a reason for that, handsome. Sit down before the coffee gets older than I am. Avery laughed. Roman stared at her for half a second, then followed her to the booth. She slid into the seat by the window. Roman sat across from her and removed his coat. His shirt was crisp white, open at the collar. Without the heavy coat and the restaurant full of frightened businessmen, he looked less like a threat and more like a man who had not slept enough in years. The waitress placed 2 mugs on the table. Coffee. Yes, please, Avery said. Roman looked into the mug. Is there another option? Water. Coffee is fine. The waitress filled both cups and walked away. Roman lifted his mug. Avery watched him take 1 sip. His expression did not change, but he set it down with precise care. She covered her mouth. That bad I have had worse, where I was held in a police station overnight when I was 19. Avery lowered her hand. You are joking. I am not. Why were you arrested? I did not say I was arrested. You said you were held in a police station. They wanted to ask questions. About what Roman reached for the sugar. They never became specific. Avery watched him add 1 packet, then another. That is not suspicious at all. You asked where I had worse coffee, and instead of answering normally, you made yourself sound more dangerous. I answered honestly. That may be worse. He stirred the coffee slowly. You have not told me your last name. Collins. Avery Collins. She heard the way he said it, not possessively, carefully as though committing it to memory. And you are Roman DeLuca, she said. You heard Mercer. I heard the entire room stop breathing when he said your name. Roman glanced toward the window. People enjoy dramatizing what they do not understand. That is a very elegant way to avoid answering. You are a lawyer. Not yet. What are you? The question was simple. Grant had asked it many times, but always as a challenge. Roman asked as though the answer mattered. I am a paralegal at Palmer & Briggs. What kind of law employment? He waited. Most people stopped there. Avery continued. We represent employees in wage theft, retaliation discrimination, and wrongful termination cases. Mostly people who cannot afford to fight companies with entire legal departments. Roman leaned back slightly. You like difficult odds. I like people having a chance. Those are not the same thing. They are when the other side has more money. Roman studied her. And the bar exam, Avery blinked. What about it? You said you were more than a paralegal. I did not say that. You almost did. She looked down at her coffee. I am studying for the Illinois bar. When February? How long have you been preparing? Officially 5 months. Unofficially since I was 16. His expression remained focused. Which section gives you the most trouble? Avery looked up. No one had ever asked her that on a first conversation. Grant had known she was studying. At least she had told him. He had never asked what it involved. Evidence, she said. Why? Because every rule has an exception and every exception has another exception hiding behind it. That sounds familiar. You work with rules, I work with men who believe rules are for people without leverage. Avery lifted an eyebrow. And what do you believe? Roman's eyes held hers. I believe every rule belongs to whoever is willing to enforce it. The answer should have warned her. Instead, it made her curious. The waitress returned with 2 menus. Kitchen closes in 20 minutes. Avery ordered grilled cheese and tomato soup. Roman asked for nothing. The waitress looked offended. You bring a woman out this late and let her eat alone. Roman glanced at Avery. She brought me. The waitress looked at Avery with approval. Smart girl. Roman picked up the menu. Burger. How do you want it, medium? Fries. Yes. See, the waitress said. You can make decisions. She walked away. Avery wrapped her hands around her mug. You are different here. From where? The restaurant. In what way? You looked like you could have ended someone's career by lifting an eyebrow. I probably could have. Avery stared at him. Roman's face remained unreadable. Then she saw the faintest movement near his mouth. You are enjoying this. A little. I thought powerful men were supposed to pretend they were humble. I have never found pretending to be harmless particularly useful. That is not what I said. It is often what people mean. Avery looked through the window at the traffic outside. She should have been uncomfortable. Part of her was. Another part had not felt this awake in years. Roman did not fill silence to prove his importance. He did not interrupt when she spoke. He watched her with an attention so complete that it made the rest of the diner seem farther away. Grant had once told Avery she expected too much from conversation. Roman made listening feel dangerous. "What was he to you?" Roman asked. Avery looked back at him. Grant Roman nodded. "My boyfriend. For how long? 2 years. And how long ago did it end? 3 years. Roman absorbed the answer without judgment. He left for Vanessa. He left for access. Avery surprised herself by saying it so plainly. Roman did not ask her to soften it. She continued. He met her through a charity event. Her father knew people Grant wanted to know. She had money connections, the right last name. And you had none of those. I had student debt. That is not the same. It was to Grant. Their food arrived. The waitress placed the grilled cheese in front of Avery and the burger before Roman. He thanked her with a politeness that seemed almost formal. Avery tore a piece from her sandwich. He never said he was leaving because she was rich. He said we wanted different lives. What did he want? To be seen with the right people. What did you want? The answer came more slowly. I wanted a home that felt safe. Work that mattered. Someone who did not make me feel guilty for caring about things. Roman looked at her across the table. That seems reasonable. It seemed small to him. Small men often confuse spectacle with scale. Avery dipped her sandwich into the soup. You have a line for everything. No, you do. I have spent years in meetings where silence is interpreted as weakness. And is it sometimes? Tonight you barely said anything to Grant. I did not need to. That was true. Grant had understood the threat before Roman finished speaking. Avery set down her sandwich. What did you mean when you said you remember the names of people who insult what stands under your protection? Roman's gaze became still. I meant Grant should be careful. Careful how he relies on relationships he does not control. That sounds like a threat. It was a threat. Avery stared at him. Roman took another bite of his burger. You admit that very easily. You asked. Most people deny threatening someone. Most people issue threats they cannot enforce. Avery leaned back. The bell above the diner door rang as a couple entered, shaking rain from their coats. She lowered her voice. Who are you really? Roman wiped his hands with a napkin. My father started a trucking company with one vehicle and a loan no bank should have approved. By the time I was 20, DeLuca Freight operated across Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan. That explains the business, does it? It does not explain the men in the car. They work for me, doing what, making sure I arrive where I intend to go. Are people trying to stop you? Occasionally. Avery searched his face. Why Roman looked down at the watch on his wrist. It was black leather, understated and old enough to carry history, because my father built more than a transportation company. The answer opened a door and closed it at the same time. Avery felt it. What else did he build? Roman's eyes lifted. Enemies. The word sat between them. Avery should have pressed harder. She wanted to. Instead, she asked, Is he still alive? Roman's hand stopped near his coffee. No. The single syllable contained something final. Avery's voice softened. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That does not mean it stopped mattering. Roman looked at her as though she had said something he had never allowed himself to consider. Then he glanced toward the window. He died when I was 26. How Roman's jaw tightened, violently. Avery did not ask another question. The waitress refilled their coffee and left a plate with 2 slices of pie. We did not order this, Roman said. You looked like you needed sugar. She turned to Avery. He always this serious. I met him an hour ago. The waitress looked between them. That explains the eye contact. Avery nearly choked on her coffee. Roman waited until the woman walked away. What eye contact? The kind she just noticed. I was looking at you, I know. Should I stop? Avery met his gaze. No. The word came out quieter than she intended. Roman did not smile. That made it more intimate. He cut 1 slice of pie and pushed the other toward her. Avery took a bite. What about you? She asked. What about me? You said people care about what you can provide. That sounded personal. Roman looked at the untouched half of his pie. Money changes the questions people ask. How they stop asking whether you are happy. They ask what you can arrange, which table you can get, which judge you know, which problem you can remove. Avery heard the exhaustion beneath his controlled tone. And women. Roman's eyes returned to hers. Women usually ask fewer questions, because they already know the answers, because they prefer not to. Avery thought of the women at the restaurant who had watched Roman enter. Some had looked interested. Others had looked afraid. "Have you been married, no engaged?" Close Roman's expression hardened by a fraction. Once, Avery waited. He did not continue. She could have let it go. Instead, she said, "You asked me about Grant." "I did, so now I am asking." Roman was silent long enough that Avery assumed he would refuse. Then he spoke. Her name was Celeste. There was no softness in the name. She came from a family my father trusted. We grew up around the same people. Everyone believed we would eventually marry. Did you love her? I believed I did. What happened? She gave information about my family to someone who wanted my father dead. Avery stopped breathing for a second. Roman's eyes remained on the table. Did she know what would happen? Yes. And your father? He died 3 weeks later. The diner continued around them. A plate struck the counter. The coffee machine hissed. Someone laughed near the door. Avery could not imagine carrying a story like that into ordinary rooms. What happened to her, she asked. Roman looked up. You do not want that answer. The calmness in his voice frightened her more than anger would have. Avery slowly set down her fork. Is that why you do not trust people? No. Then why I trust people? You arrive with armed men. That is not distrust. It is preparation. You did not tell me what happened to Celeste. Roman held her gaze. You did not ask whether I trust her. The answer drew a chill along Avery's skin. She should have left then. She knew that. Instead she asked, Why did you help me? Roman leaned back. I told you. You saw someone being insulted and decided to kiss her. I saw a man make you question your own place in a room you had every right to enter. Avery looked down. Roman continued. You could have embarrassed him. You knew enough about him to do it. How do you know? Because people who were once close know where the weak points are. I did not want to ruin Maya's dinner. I know. You do not know anything about Maya. I saw the way you looked toward her before every response. You were measuring how much damage your anger might cause someone else. Avery stared at him. He had observed more in a few minutes than Grant had noticed in 2 years. That realization hurt in an unexpected way. Roman's voice softened. Mercer mistook your restraint for weakness. He was not the first. Was he the reason you believed it? Avery's throat tightened. She looked out the window. Rain had begun again, fine droplets tapping the glass. I spent a long time thinking that if I became more impressive, I would understand why he left. Roman did not interrupt. I thought if I passed the bar, earned more money, dressed differently, learned how to talk to people like Vanessa, then maybe I would stop feeling like she had won something I failed to keep. Grant is not a prize. I know that now. Do you? Avery looked at him sharply. Roman's expression was not cruel. It was direct. She turned the silver ring around her finger. Some days. Roman placed his hand on the table, palm down. He did not reach for her. Mercer did not choose a better woman. Avery's eyes lifted. He chose a woman whose circumstances served his ambition. That says nothing about your value or hers. It says everything about his. The inclusion of Vanessa surprised her. Avery had expected him to insult her. She laughed at me. Yes, you are defending her? No, I am refusing to define either of you through his appetite. Avery sat very still. There were lines Grant had left inside her that she had never recognized as his. Roman seemed to see them. Some men cannot see a diamond unless someone richer tells them what it is worth, he said. Avery frowned. I am not a diamond. No. His answer came immediately. She lifted an eyebrow. Roman's gaze moved over her face. Diamonds can be bought. The room seemed warmer. Avery looked down at her soup, though she was no longer hungry. That sounded practiced. It was not. Do you say things like that often? No. Why not? I rarely mean them. She felt the words settle beneath her ribs. Roman reached for his wallet when the check arrived. Avery placed her hand on the paper first. You are not paying. I invited you out of the restaurant. I invited you here. You said I owed you coffee. You bought coffee by participating. Roman glanced at the total. It is $29, and I spend more than that on parking. Then this will be educational. Avery placed cash on the table before he could object. Roman watched her. You do not like owing people? No. Why? Because some people remember favors as debts long after you have repaid them. Roman nodded once. He understood too quickly. They stepped back outside close to midnight. The rain had stopped, leaving the city shining beneath streetlights. Cars passed in waves. The air smelled of wet concrete and cold metal. Avery stood beneath the diner sign and checked her phone. 3 missed calls from Maya. 7 messages. The first asked whether she was safe. The second demanded to know who Roman was. The final message read, "You kissed Roman DeLuca in front of Grant Mercer and then disappeared. I love you, but I may kill you." Avery smiled. "Your cousin?" Roman asked. "Yes." Concerned, furious, reasonable. Avery put the phone away. "I should go." Roman raised one hand toward the street. A taxi slowed. Before it reached them, Avery asked, "Why did everyone know you?" Roman lowered his hand. "Chicago remembers family names. That is another elegant answer. It is still true. Should I be afraid of yours?" Roman looked at her for a long moment. The city moved around them. A siren passed somewhere far away. "Most people are," he said. "That was not my question." "No." "Then answer it." Roman stepped closer. Not enough to touch her. Enough that she could smell rain on his coat and something faintly cedar beneath it. "You should be careful with me." Avery held his gaze. "That is not the same as being afraid." "No," Roman said. "It is not." The taxi stopped at the curb. Roman opened the door. Avery placed one foot inside, then turned back. "If there is another kiss, you ask." Roman's eyes dropped briefly to her mouth. "I remember." She sat down. He closed the door gently. As the taxi pulled away, Avery looked through the rear window. Roman remained beneath the red diner sign, watching until the car turned the corner. She told herself the quickening in her chest belonged to the night. The confrontation and the shock of everything that had happened. It did not belong to him. By the time she reached her apartment, she had repeated the lie enough times to recognize it. Maya called before Avery removed her coat. "What happened?" Avery placed the phone on speaker and kicked off her shoes. "Good evening to you, too. Do not good evening me." Daniel's father nearly dropped his drink. Grant looked like someone had buried him alive. "Vanessa left the table 10 minutes after you did." Avery paused. Why, she and Grant were arguing. About me, about him lying about you. Avery sat on the edge of her bed. "What did he say? I could not hear everything." "Vanessa asked why he told her you never finished college." Avery closed her eyes. Grant had not only reduced her in the restaurant, he had rewritten her before she arrived. Maya's voice softened. "Are you all right?" "I think so." "Who is Roman DeLuca, a businessman?" That is not what Daniel's father said. Avery looked toward the dark windows. What did he say? That Roman's company owns half the roots the Sinclairs need. He also said no one insults Roman's family twice. Avery thought of the warning beneath Roman's voice. "I am not his family. You were when he had his hand on your waist. That was an act." Did it feel like one? Avery looked down at her grandmother's ring. "Maya." That was not an answer. "I had coffee with him." Silence filled the phone. Then Maya shouted so loudly Avery had to pull it away from her ear. "You had coffee with Roman DeLuca at a diner. That detail does not make it normal." He apologized. "For threatening Grant or kissing you the kiss, and the threat he meant that." Maya groaned. "Avery, men with security teams do not appear from nowhere and kiss paralegals at engagement parties." He was invited. "That is not the important part." Avery stood and walked toward the kitchen. Her casebooks waited beneath the yellow light. For the first time in months, she did not feel like opening them. "He listened to me," she said quietly. Maya stopped speaking. Avery leaned against the table. "I told him about the bar exam. He asked which section was difficult. That is a low standard." "I know. But Grant never did." "No." Maya's anger softened. "Do you like him? I do not know him. That was not my question either." Avery smiled despite herself. "I am going to sleep. You are avoiding me. Yes, fine. But text me tomorrow. I will." "And Avery, what I am glad Grant saw someone choose you." Avery stared at the stack of books. "That is not what matters." "No," Maya said. "But I am still glad." After the call, Avery changed into an old shirt and washed the makeup from her face. She should have felt victorious. Grant had been embarrassed. Vanessa had challenged him. 40 people had watched Avery leave with the most commanding man in the room. Instead, she kept returning to the moment Roman asked whether she trusted him. He had offered 5 seconds. She had given them. The next morning, Avery arrived at Palmer and Briggs 6 minutes late. Her coworker Jasmine looked up from the reception desk. "There are flowers on your desk." Avery stopped. "What kind, expensive? That is not a kind. It is when they arrive in a black car." Avery walked faster. A white arrangement covered half her desk. Roses, lilies, and orchids filled a dark glass vase. No balloons, no bright ribbon, nothing careless. A small envelope rested among the flowers. Jasmine appeared behind her. "Open it." Avery removed the card. The handwriting was sharp and controlled. "Still waiting for your answer. Dinner, no lies, no surprise kisses, Roman." Avery read it twice. Jasmine leaned over her shoulder. "Who is Roman? No one. No one sent you flowers that cost more than my rent." Avery turned the card over. A phone number was written on the back. She placed it beside her keyboard and opened her email. For 20 minutes she answered messages, reviewed a deposition summary, and pretended the flowers did not exist. At 9:17 she picked up her phone. She typed, "One dinner. Public place. I choose the restaurant." She stared at the words before pressing send. The reply arrived less than 10 seconds later. "Agreed. You are already improving my negotiation skills." Avery smiled. Then she erased the smile when Jasmine looked at her. At noon another message arrived. This one came from a number she had deleted 3 years earlier but still recognized. "Grant, you have no idea what you are getting involved with." Avery's fingers went cold. A second message followed. "DeLuca is not a businessman. He is a criminal." She read it again. Then another appeared. "Ask him what happened at Pier 19. Avery began typing a response. She stopped. Grant had no right to warn her after humiliating her. He also had no reason to protect her. That made the message more troubling. Avery turned her phone face down. Her office window looked over LaSalle Street. Traffic moved below in neat streams. A black vehicle was parked across from the building. It resembled the one Roman had sent away the night before. Avery stepped closer to the glass. The rear windows were dark. Her phone rang. Not Grant. The managing partner's assistant. "Mr. Briggs would like to see you in the conference room." "About what?" "A new client." Avery gathered a legal pad and walked down the hallway. The conference room door was closed. Through the frosted glass she could see 2 figures seated at the table. Mr. Briggs opened the door before she knocked. "Avery, come in." Roman rose from his chair. He wore a charcoal suit and the same controlled expression from the restaurant. A thick file rested on the table before him. Avery looked from Roman to her employer. Mr. Briggs smiled. "Mr. DeLuca has requested that you assist with an internal compliance review for DeLuca Freight." Avery remained near the door. "You requested me." Roman's eyes held hers. "I prefer working with people who ask difficult questions." Grant's message seemed to burn inside Avery's pocket. She crossed the room and placed her legal pad on the table. "Good." Roman waited until she sat before taking his seat. Avery opened the file. "Let us start with Pier 19. For the first time since Avery had met him, Roman did not answer immediately. Mr. Briggs stood at the far end of the conference table, unaware of the tension that had entered the room. "The Pier 19 records are only one part of the review," he said. "Mr. DeLuca's company is preparing to acquire Lakeshore Regional Transport. Our role is to examine labor compliance vendor contracts, port access agreements, and any exposure that might complicate the purchase." Avery kept her eyes on Roman. "Then Pier 19 should be easy to explain." Roman leaned back in his chair. "Where did you hear that name?" "Does it matter? It matters to me." Mr. Briggs glanced between them. "Have you two discussed this matter before?" "No," Avery said. "At dinner," Roman said at the same time. Avery turned toward him. Roman's expression remained calm. "We discussed freight operations," he added. It was not technically a lie. That made it worse. Mr. Briggs smiled, apparently satisfied. "Good. Familiarity should make the process smoother." He opened the file and began explaining the scope of the assignment. Avery took notes, but her attention remained divided between the figures on the page and the man across from her. DeLuca Freight reported more than $400 million in annual revenue. The company operated distribution centers throughout the Midwest and controlled valuable shipping contracts along Lake Michigan. On paper, it was stable, profitable, and aggressively expanding. Pier 19 appeared only twice, once in an insurance report, once in a list of restricted facilities. No explanation accompanied either reference. Roman watched Avery notice. When the meeting ended, Mr. Briggs gathered his papers. Avery will be your primary contact for document collection. She is one of our most thorough paralegals. Roman's gaze stayed on her. I am counting on it. After Mr. Briggs left, Avery closed the conference room door. Roman did not move. Grant messaged me this morning. Roman's face became still. What did he say? That you are a criminal? Roman looked toward the city beyond the windows. And you came into this room anyway. I came because my employer called me. You could have refused the assignment. I am not in the habit of letting Grant Mercer determine which clients I work with. Roman returned his attention to her. What else did he say? He told me to ask about Pier 19. Roman's fingers rested beside the file. Grant knows enough to be dangerous and not enough to understand why. That sounds impressive, but it is not an answer. No. Was someone killed there? Roman's expression did not change. Avery felt the answer before he spoke. Yes. The room seemed colder. Who? A man named Anthony Vale. Who was he? Someone who made poor choices. That could describe half of Chicago. He stole from my company, and he died. Yes. Avery looked down at the file. Did you kill him? Roman's voice remained quiet. No. She searched his face. Did you order someone else to do it? No. The answer came without hesitation. Avery wanted to believe it. She also understood that Roman knew how to say the truth without revealing the whole of it. What happened? Vale was moving freight through Pier 19 without authorization. He became involved with men who believed betrayal should be punished publicly. His body was found near the water. And your company was connected. My company owned the lease. Were you investigated? Yes. Were you charged? No. Why does Grant know about it? Roman closed the file. That is what I intend to find out. Avery did not like the word intend. It sounded less like curiosity and more like a promise. The door opened. Mr. Briggs' assistant entered with a schedule and a stack of access forms. The moment ended. For the next 4 hours, Avery worked through the records Roman had provided. He remained in the conference room with her answering calls in a low voice while she reviewed contracts. His business manner was precise. He approved a medical payment for an injured driver without asking whether the company could legally avoid it. He rejected a proposal to cut health benefits at a warehouse in Indiana. When a manager suggested replacing several older employees with temporary workers, Roman told him to find savings somewhere else. Avery tried to fit those decisions beside Grant's warning. Criminal. The word did not match the man who remembered the name of a driver's daughter. It did not erase the armed guards either. By late afternoon, Avery had identified 3 missing files. Vendor payments for Dock Services Limited are incomplete. Roman looked up from his phone. Which months? March, May, and June. I will have accounting send them. There are also cash transfers listed under Industrial Security Consulting. That is a legitimate expense. Then there should be invoices. There are. Not in this file. Roman closed his phone. You are very comfortable accusing a client of withholding information. I did not accuse you. You implied it. I asked for records. Why? Because that is my job. Roman studied her for a moment. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. Send Avery Collins every invoice related to Dock Services Limited and Industrial Security Consulting for the last 2 years. He listened. No exclusions. Another pause. I understand what I said. He ended the call. Avery looked at him. Who wanted exclusions? My chief financial officer. Why, he believes some expenses could create unnecessary questions. They are already creating questions. That is why I gave them to you. Avery sat back. You are either very confident or very reckless. Those qualities often look similar from a distance. The requested documents arrived 20 minutes later. Several payments were made to companies Avery could not verify through public corporate records. Others passed through holding groups registered in Delaware. The amounts were too regular to be accidental and too carefully divided to be ordinary operating expenses. She marked the pages. Roman watched her. You found something. I found patterns. Are they illegal? I do not know. That is not the answer I expected. I am a paralegal, not a magician. You were more certain when accusing me at lunch. I asked whether you killed someone. And were you satisfied with my answer? Avery met his eyes. No. Roman looked almost pleased. Good. She frowned. Good. You should not trust an answer simply because you want it to be true. The remark followed her home that evening. For the next 2 weeks, DeLuca freight consumed nearly every hour Avery was not studying. She visited the company's downtown headquarters, where Roman's office occupied the upper floor of a glass tower overlooking the river. She expected marble art and the usual displays of wealth. Instead, the space was dark wood steel and silence. No family photograph stood on his desk, no personal object softened the room. Only the old watch on his wrist suggested Roman belonged to a life outside his work. Employees treated him with respect that sometimes crossed into fear. Yet Avery saw things Grant's warning had not prepared her for. Roman knew the name of the receptionist's son. He stopped a meeting when an employee received news that her mother had been hospitalized. He visited a warehouse after a forklift accident and remained until the injured driver's wife arrived. The man who could silence a restaurant with one look sat beside that woman in a hospital corridor and promised her husband's wages would continue. Avery stood several feet away holding a file she had forgotten to open. Roman found her watching. What, nothing? That is rarely true when you say it. She looked toward the injured driver's room. You did not have to come here. Yes, I did. The company has managers for this. He was injured while working for me. That does not make you responsible for every accident. Roman's face hardened. Responsibility does not disappear because it can be delegated. Avery heard something personal beneath the words. Is that what your father taught you? Roman looked away. No, he did not explain. Later that night, they attended a meeting with representatives from a port workers' union. The discussion began with contract terms and ended with a threat. A union official named Malcolm Price leaned across the table and told Roman that freight could disappear at the docks if the company refused to increase certain payments. Roman listened without interrupting. Price mistook the silence for hesitation. You may control trucks, he said, but the port belongs to men who know how to close it. Roman rested both hands on the table. You threatened one of my managers outside his home yesterday. Price's smile disappeared. I do not know what you are talking about. You frightened his wife. No one touched her. Roman's voice became softer. You will apologize before you leave. Price laughed. No one else did. Avery looked around the room. Roman's security chief stood near the door. 2 union representatives stared at the table. The senior attorney beside Avery stopped writing. Price's confidence faded by degrees. What happens if I refuse? Roman held his gaze. You will not. The meeting continued. 20 minutes later, Price approached the manager and apologized. His hands were shaking. In the elevator afterward, Avery faced Roman. What did you say to him? Nothing you did not hear. He was terrified. He should not threaten families. That is not what I asked. Roman pressed the lobby button. He knows what happens when men involve people who have nothing to do with a dispute. Avery watched his reflection in the elevator doors. And what happens? Roman looked at her through the polished steel. They lose the protection of rules. The doors opened. Roman walked out. Avery remained inside until the alarm sounded. Their first real date happened 3 nights later. Avery chose a family-owned restaurant in Bridgeport partly because the food was excellent, and partly because she wanted to see Roman in a place where no one polished the floor for his arrival. He appeared at 7 exactly. No visible guards entered with him. Avery noticed a dark sedan across the street anyway. You agreed to come alone. I did come alone. There are 2 men outside. They are not eating with us. That is an inventive interpretation. Roman pulled out her chair. You said public place. You did not say unprotected place. Avery sat. I am beginning to understand why your negotiations take so long. Roman took the chair across from her. You agreed to dinner. I agreed to 1 dinner. That is how all second dinners begin. She tried not to smile. Roman noticed. Over pasta and red wine, he asked about her grandmother. Avery told him about the security deposit, the printed pages, and the landlord who surrendered before lunch. Roman listened without checking his phone. She sounds formidable. She was. Was Avery traced the edge of her glass? She died while I was in college. I am sorry. She would have disliked you. Roman paused. Why? She distrusted wealthy men in expensive suits. A sensible woman. She also believed everyone deserved a chance to prove her wrong. Less sensible. Avery laughed. The sound surprised both of them. Roman's gaze settled on her face. The warmth in it was quieter than desire and somehow more dangerous. After dinner, they walked beneath the orange glow of streetlights. Roman kept a respectful distance. Avery became aware of every inch between them. At the corner, he stopped. "I would like to kiss you." There was no audience, no Grant, no reason to perform. Avery looked at his mouth, then back at his eyes. "You are asking?" "Yes. And if I say no, I call you a car and spend the rest of the night wondering whether I chose the wrong restaurant." She stepped closer. "You did choose the wrong restaurant." Roman's expression shifted. Avery placed one hand against his chest. The coffee was terrible. Then she kissed him. Roman did not touch her until she curled her fingers into his coat. His hand rose slowly to her waist. This kiss did not silence a room. It silenced everything inside her that had been demanding caution since the moment they met. When they separated, Roman rested his forehead lightly against hers. "The first kiss saved you from an unpleasant conversation." Avery caught her breath. "This one may have created one. I'm willing to have it. Not tonight." Roman nodded. "Not tonight." He walked her to the car and waited until she was inside. Avery spent the ride home wondering how a man could make restraint feel more intimate than pursuit. The next morning, work returned her to reality. Avery found a discrepancy in a set of freight invoices connected to Sinclair Holdings. Several shipping charges had been inflated by almost 40%. The excess money moved through a series of consulting companies before disappearing into a development fund controlled by Richard Sinclair. One of the authorization signatures belonged to Grant. Avery checked the figures twice, then a third time. The transfers did not benefit Roman. Someone was stealing from DeLuca Freight and using the company's network to hide the movement of money. She carried the records into Roman's office. He was standing by the window with his security chief, Gabriel Russo. Gabriel stopped speaking when Avery entered. Roman motioned for him to remain. "What did you find?" Avery placed the invoices on the desk. Grant approved these charges. Roman read the first page. "Sinclair Holdings has authority over its own development accounts, not over your internal security vendors." Gabriel stepped closer. Avery pointed to the transfers. "The same consulting companies appear in both sets of records. Sinclair money enters here, freight charges are inflated here, and the difference is transferred through companies that do not appear to have employees." Roman's expression hardened. "How much?" "Almost $8 million over 18 months. Gabriel swore quietly. Roman looked at Avery. "Who else knows my supervising attorney? Anyone outside your firm? No. Keep it that way." Avery folded her arms. "You do not give me orders." Roman looked at Gabriel. "Leave us." Gabriel hesitated. "Roman, now." When the door closed, Roman walked around the desk. "This is not a dispute over invoices." "I understand that." "No, you understand paper. The men behind the paper may not care which laws you quote. I am working for your legal counsel, and I am telling you the risk has changed." Avery met him without stepping back. "Then tell me the truth." Roman's jaw tightened. "I have told you what matters. You have told me what you decided I was allowed to know. That is not the same thing. It feels exactly the same." His eyes darkened. Avery gathered the invoices. "I am not Grant. You do not get to make me smaller and call it protection." She left before he could answer. That afternoon, Vanessa Sinclair called the firm and asked to speak with Avery privately. They met at a quiet cafe near Millennium Park. Vanessa arrived wearing a cream coat and sunglasses despite the gray sky. Without Grant beside her, she looked less cruel and more tired. "I am not here to apologize," she said after sitting down. Avery placed her phone on the table. "Then this may be a short meeting." Vanessa removed her glasses. "Grant lied about you. That is not new information. He told me you dropped out of college. I graduated. He said you refused to work. I've had a job since I was 17. Vanessa looked toward the window. "He said you became obsessed with him after the breakup." Avery felt anger rise, then settle. "What do you want from me?" Vanessa folded her hands. "I want to know whether he was seeing me before he ended things with you." Avery looked at her. The arrogance from the engagement dinner was gone. In its place was fear. "Yes," Avery said. Vanessa's face tightened. "I did not know. I believe you. Why? Because Grant prefers women who do not have enough information to challenge him." Vanessa looked down. He has been asking my father to move the wedding forward. He wants a board seat before the end of the year. Do you want to marry him? Vanessa did not answer. Avery understood. The meeting ended without forgiveness, but with an exchange of numbers. 2 nights later, Avery remained late at DeLuca Freight reviewing warehouse leases. A restricted file linked Pier 19 to a property near the Calumet River. Anthony Vale's name appeared beside a freight authorization signed 6 days before his death. Below it was another name, Victor Kane. Avery had seen Victor twice at Roman's office. He was one of the few men who spoke to Roman without lowering his eyes. She copied the lease number onto her legal pad. The warehouse address was less than 20 minutes away. She told herself she only wanted to confirm the property existed. She did not tell Roman. The freight district was nearly empty after dark. Rows of warehouses stood beneath yellow lights. Train tracks cut through cracked pavement. The river moved beyond chain-link fences black beneath the winter sky. Avery parked near the address and walked toward the loading entrance. The building appeared abandoned. One side door was unlocked. Inside, dust covered the floor, but fresh tire marks crossed it. Avery followed them toward a row of shipping containers. A voice sounded behind her. "You have a remarkable talent for ignoring danger." She turned. Roman stood near the entrance. Gabriel and 2 other men waited behind him. Avery's fear transformed into anger. "You followed me. I had someone watching the office. That is not better. You entered an abandoned warehouse alone. I found Victor Kane's name in the Pier 19 records." Roman's face changed. Before he could answer, glass shattered above them. Roman moved first. He crossed the distance between them and drove Avery behind a concrete barrier as gunfire struck the metal wall. The sound tore through the warehouse. Avery covered her head. Roman shielded her with his body. Gabriel shouted orders. More shots answered from the entrance. Roman drew a gun from beneath his coat. Avery stared at it. He looked nothing like the man from the diner. His face was cold, focused, empty of hesitation. "Stay down," he said. A man rushed from behind a container. Roman fired once. The man fell. Avery stopped breathing. Roman turned toward another sound and fired again. The air filled with smoke and metal. Within minutes it was over. One attacker lay unconscious near the doors. Another was bleeding beside the loading bay. The others had escaped through the rear exit. Avery stood slowly. Her knees felt weak. The wounded man near the loading bay looked at Roman with hatred. "You think you are still in control, Don DeLuca?" Avery looked at Roman. Don. The word reached every hidden fear Grant's message had created. Roman's face gave away nothing. "Get her out," he told Gabriel. Avery stepped back. "No." Roman turned toward her. "We are leaving. You killed someone. He was shooting at you. You carried a gun into a warehouse." "I carry one everywhere." The honesty struck harder than denial. Gabriel approached, but Avery raised one hand. "Do not touch me." Roman looked at the bodies, then at her. "Not here. We're somewhere secure. I am not getting into your car until you tell me who you are." Another vehicle entered the yard outside. Roman listened to something through Gabriel's earpiece. Then he looked at Avery. "If we stay here, more men may arrive. That is not an answer." "No," he said. "It is the reason you are going to get one." The DeLuca estate stood north of the city behind stone walls and iron gates. Avery sat in the rear of the vehicle with Roman beside her. Neither spoke. His knuckles were scraped. A small line of blood marked his collar. Avery kept seeing the gun rise in his hand. She kept hearing the single shot. Inside the estate, Roman led her to a library with dark shelves and windows facing the lake. Gabriel closed the doors behind them. Roman removed his coat and placed the gun on a table across the room. Far from Avery, the gesture did not make her feel safer. "DeLuca Freight is legitimate," he said. Avery remained standing. "And the rest? My family controlled gambling port unions, protection networks, and smuggling routes before I was born. Controlled controls." Avery felt the room tilt. "You run a criminal organization?" "Yes." The word carried no apology, no pride either. "My father built the freight company to move legal cargo and conceal illegal cargo. When he died, I inherited both. You told me he was murdered. He was. By Celeste. She gave his schedule to a rival family. Avery remembered the diner. What happened to her? Roman looked toward the windows. I ordered her exile from Chicago. Her brother tried to bring her back. Men died. Did she know? Avery did not know whether the answer relieved her. What do you do now? I ended our narcotics routes. I closed every operation connected to trafficking. I moved most of the family income into freight construction and legal gaming. Most. Roman's eyes returned to hers. I still control illegal gambling. I still pay men for information. I still use influence that would not survive a courtroom, and violence. His silence answered. Avery swallowed. Have you killed people? Yes. Tonight was not the first time. No. The quiet certainty of it made her chest ache. Roman stepped closer, then stopped when she stiffened. I have ordered men hurt. I have ordered men killed. I will not insult you by calling survival innocence. You hired my firm knowing this. I hired your firm to review a legitimate acquisition. You requested me. Yes. Why? Because I wanted you near me. Avery laughed once without humor. You thought that was romantic? No. At least you are honest now. I was honest before. You gave me pieces. I gave you what I believed would keep you safe. There it is. Avery pointed toward him. You decided what I could know because you wanted me to stay. I knew you would leave. You made sure I had no informed choice. Roman's jaw tightened. Knowledge of my world makes you a target. I became a target without the knowledge. I did not expect Grant to be connected. You did not expect it, so I paid the price. I protected you. At the warehouse, yes. Avery's voice shook. But before that, you watched me investigate records that could get me killed and said nothing. Roman took another step. I had security around you. I do not want invisible guards deciding where I go. You would be dead without them. And that gives you control over my life. It gives you a life to control. The words struck the room like another gunshot. Roman closed his eyes briefly. Avery stared at him. That is exactly what Grant did. His eyes opened. No. He made every decision for me, then called it care. I am not Grant. No, Grant wanted me smaller because it made him feel larger. You want me contained because it makes you feel less afraid. Roman's expression broke by a fraction. That was the truth he had not expected her to find. The kiss at the restaurant was a lie, he said. Wanting you afterward was not. Avery's eyes burned. Wanting me does not give you the right to decide what I am allowed to know. I know. Do you? Roman looked at her as if holding still required effort. What do you want me to say the truth before I have to drag it out of you? I told you the truth. After men shot at us. Yes. After I watched you kill someone. Yes. After you ran out of choices. Roman said nothing. Avery picked up her coat. He did not move to stop her. At the library door she turned. Do not follow me. Roman's voice was low. I cannot promise that. Then do not let me see you. Avery left the estate in a car driven by a man who did not speak. She stared through the window as the lights of Chicago returned. Her phone held 6 messages from Roman. She did not open them. The next morning, 2 security officers stood beside her desk at Palmer and Briggs. Mr. Briggs waited near the conference room with a face Avery had never seen before. Avery, we need to talk. Her office had been searched. Drawers stood open. Files covered the desk. Her computer was disconnected. What happened? Mr. Briggs closed the conference room door behind them. Confidential DeLuca records were copied using your credentials. Avery stared at him. That is impossible. They were accessed late last night. I was not here. The system shows your card entering the records floor. I was at a DeLuca property. Mr. Briggs's expression changed. Can anyone confirm that Avery thought of Roman Gabriel and armed men beside a warehouse? Yes. Who? She did not answer quickly enough. Mr. Briggs placed a printed report on the table. The documents were sent to a federal contact and an outside address connected to a freight competitor. Avery scanned the page. Her employee number appeared beside every transfer. I did not do this. I want to believe you. You know me. I also know the firm faces criminal exposure if we mishandle this. Avery looked through the glass at her ruined desk. You are suspending me. Until we complete an investigation. Her phone began vibrating. Grant. Avery declined the call. He called again. She stepped into the hallway and answered. What did you do? Grant's voice was almost gentle. I warned you. You used my credentials. I can make this disappear. Avery walked toward the window. A black vehicle waited across the street. She could not tell whether Roman had sent it or someone else was watching. "What do you want? I want you to help me destroy Roman DeLuca." Avery looked at the security officers carrying boxes from her office. Grant lowered his voice. "And if you refuse, this will not end with your career." Grant let the silence breathe between them. Avery watched one of the security officers seal a box containing 3 years of her work. Deposition notes, client letters, copies of motions she had helped prepare long after everyone else had gone home. Grant had not merely threatened her job, he had placed his hand around the life she had built after him and tightened his fingers. "What do you want me to do?" Avery asked. His relief came through the phone as a soft exhale. "There is a statement waiting in your personal email. You will sign it and tell investigators Roman ordered you to remove records from the firm." Avery walked farther from the conference room. "And then, you will provide access to DeLuca Freight's private accounting system." "You expect me to believe this clears my name? It gives the government someone more valuable to prosecute." "You," Grant laughed quietly. "You still think the world rewards honesty? That was always your weakness." Avery looked through the office window at the dark vehicle across the street. "No," she said. "Believing you loved me was my weakness." His voice hardened. "You have until tomorrow morning." The call ended. Avery stood motionless for several seconds. Then she opened the statement Grant had sent. The document accused Roman of directing illegal payments through DeLuca Freight, intimidating union officials, and using company funds to conceal violent crimes. Some claims were vague. Others were painfully specific. One paragraph described the restricted Pier 19 files using language Avery had seen only inside Palmer and Briggs. Grant had access to confidential material long before her suspension. He had prepared this before Roman ever kissed her. Avery forwarded the statement to a private encrypted account, photographed the sender information, and deleted the message from her work phone. Mr. Briggs appeared behind her. "You need to leave the building." Avery turned. "I understand." His face softened. "I am sorry." "Are you? I believe the evidence should be tested." "That is not the same as believing me." "No." At least he was honest. Avery collected her coat and grandmother's ring from the desk drawer. As she passed the reception area, Jasmine stood with tears in her eyes. "I know you did not do it." Avery forced a smile. "Then that makes 2 of us." Outside, the Chicago wind cut across LaSalle Street. The black vehicle remained parked near the corner. Avery crossed toward it. Gabriel stepped out before she reached the door. "Roman wants to see you. I told him not to follow me. He did not. He sent you." Gabriel did not deny it. Avery looked through the tinted window. Roman was not inside. "Tell him I will contact him when I am ready. This is not safe. Nothing has been safe since he entered that restaurant." Gabriel's expression tightened. "You were framed because someone wants access to Roman, I know. Then get in the car." Avery stepped closer. "Did Roman know Grant had access to my firm? No. Did he know someone inside DeLuca Freight was leaking records?" "We suspected it. You suspected it and allowed me to keep working." Gabriel lowered his voice. "Roman believed security around you was enough. Roman believes protection excuses secrecy. He believes you are alive because of it." Avery opened the rear door, placed Grant's statement on the seat, and closed it again. "Give him that." Gabriel glanced through the glass. "What is it?" "The reason Grant framed me." She walked away before he could stop her. At home, Avery spread every piece of information across her kitchen table. Grant's statement, photographs from the engagement dinner, copies of the access report, her notes from the DeLuca review. She removed the yellow electricity notice, paid it online with money she had been saving for exam fees, then placed her laptop in the center of the table. For the next 6 hours, she rebuilt the crime against her. Her credentials had accessed the records floor at 9:14 on the night of Maya's dinner. At that time, Avery had been inside the restaurant. Dozens of witnesses could confirm it. The person who used her card had either copied it earlier or taken the original and returned it before she noticed. Avery opened the gallery Maya had shared after the party. Photograph after photograph filled the screen. Maya and Daniel near the flowers, relatives raising champagne, Grant and Vanessa beside the windows. Avery enlarged an image taken shortly before dinner. Her coat hung near the entrance. Grant stood behind the attendant, speaking to a man from Daniel's company. His hand was inside his jacket. In the next photograph, he was gone. Avery called Maya. "I need you to remember something." Maya did not ask why. What did Grant leave the dining room before he approached me? I think so. For how long, I do not know. Maybe 10 minutes. Where did he go? Maya became quiet. Daniel asked him about it later. Grant said he was taking a business call near the coat room. Avery closed her eyes. Her purse had been inside her coat pocket. Grant knew she carried her employee card there. He had watched her do it for years. Can Daniel get the restaurant security footage? I will ask him. Do not tell anyone else. Avery, what is happening? Grant used my credentials to steal legal records. Maya inhaled sharply. I am calling the police. Not yet. Why? Because Grant is not working alone and I need proof that connects him to the money. Maya's voice trembled. Do not become brave in a way that gets you killed. Avery looked at the statement on her table. I spent 3 years being afraid of him. It did not keep me safe. The next call came from Vanessa. Her voice was low and unsteady. We need to meet. Avery glanced at the clock. We're my father's apartment on East Lake Shore Drive. Grant thinks I am at a fitting. Why are you calling me? Because I found something. Vanessa opened the apartment door before Avery knocked. She wore no makeup. Her hair was tied back and the diamond ring Grant had displayed so proudly was absent from her hand. The apartment overlooked the lake through walls of glass. Vanessa led Avery into a study and placed a laptop on the desk. Grant changed his password last week. How did you get in? He used the date we met. Vanessa gave a bitter smile. He always said it was the most important night of his life. Avery sat. What did you find? Emails covered the screen. Grant had exchanged messages with Richard Sinclair, Victor Kane, and several unknown men for more than a year. The plan was larger than Avery had understood. Sinclair Holdings had been moving investor money through false construction projects. Inflated DeLuca freight invoices disguised the missing funds. Victor Kane provided internal vendor codes and access to restricted accounts. Grant coordinated the transfers. Once enough money disappeared, they intended to expose Roman's criminal connections and accused DeLuca Freight of laundering the funds. Roman would face federal prosecution. Sinclair Holdings would acquire pieces of his legitimate company after its collapse. Avery scrolled farther. One email discussed her by name. Use Collins if necessary. Her connection to DeLuca makes her credible and disposable. Vanessa read over her shoulder. Grant wrote that 3 days ago. Avery felt cold. He planned to frame me after the engagement dinner. He planned to use you the moment Roman showed interest. Avery looked at Vanessa. And your father agreed. Vanessa's eyes filled. My father agreed to everything. Another message described Grant's marriage to Vanessa as the final step toward securing a permanent board position. No affection, no partnership, only access. Vanessa sat in the chair beside Avery. He chose me because of my name. Avery recognized the humiliation beneath the words. Once she might have felt satisfaction. Now she saw another woman standing where Grant had once left her. He chooses whatever makes him feel powerful, Avery said. That is not love. Vanessa looked toward the empty place on her finger. I laughed at you. Yes, I believed everything he told me. Yes, I am sorry. Avery did not offer immediate forgiveness. She took a portable drive from her purse and copied the emails. Sorry becomes useful when you help stop him. Vanessa nodded. What do you need all of it? By midnight, Avery had enough evidence to expose fraud, identity theft, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. It was not enough to protect Roman from his own crimes. It was enough to prove Grant had framed her. Avery encrypted 3 copies. One went to her supervising attorney. One went to a federal defense lawyer her grandmother had once trusted. The third was scheduled for automatic release if Avery failed to cancel it every 12 hours. Only then did she call Roman. He answered on the first ring. Where are you safe, Avery? I found the leak. Silence. Victor Kane, she continued. He has been working with Grant and Richard Sinclair. Roman's voice changed. Come to the estate. I am not coming because you ordered me. I am asking. That stopped her. Avery looked at Vanessa, who gave a small nod. I will be there in 40 minutes. At the DeLuca estate, Gabriel attempted to search Avery's bag. She held it against her side. No. It is procedure. Then Roman can tell me himself. The library doors opened. Roman stood inside. He looked as though he had not slept. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his forearms. A dark bruise marked one knuckle. "Let her through," he said. Gabriel stepped aside. Avery entered and placed the copied records on the table. Roman read the first pages in silence. When he reached Victor's emails, his face emptied of emotion. It was the expression Avery had seen in the warehouse before he fired his gun. "I will handle Grant," he said. "No." Roman looked up. "He threatened you. He framed me. He will not have another opportunity." Avery understood exactly what that meant. "You are not killing him." Roman's eyes hardened. "You do not decide that. And you do not decide what justice looks like for me. This is not a courtroom. It will be." Roman moved around the table. "Men like Grant buy time witnesses, judges, and excuses. Then we give him evidence he cannot buy his way out of. You think paper will protect you? No. I think evidence will destroy him more completely than a bullet." Roman stopped in front of her. "If he touches you again, I will kill him." Avery did not look away. "If you do, I remain the woman two powerful men fought over. I need to be the person who proves what he did." Something changed in Roman's face. The anger remained, but it no longer controlled the room. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "The complete financial records. No missing vendors. No protected accounts. That information could expose my organization. I know. It could put men in prison. I know it could put me in prison." Avery's voice softened. "Then trust me enough to let me decide what is relevant." Roman looked at her for a long time. Then he unlocked a drawer in his desk and removed a black ledger. He placed it between them. "No one outside my family has seen this." Avery rested her hand on the cover. "Then this is not protection, no. What is it?" Roman met her eyes. "Trust." They worked until morning. The ledger confirmed Victor had redirected payments and sold freight routes to Sinclair-controlled companies. It also contained enough information to expose operations Roman had kept outside the law. Avery marked only what connected to Grant's conspiracy. Roman noticed. "You could destroy me with the rest." "I could." "Why do you not?" "Because I asked for the truth, not revenge." His gaze stayed on her. The space between them filled with everything neither was ready to say. At dawn, Avery's phone rang. "Grant." She answered and activated the recorder beside her laptop. "You missed the deadline," he said. "I needed proof you could clear my name. I can. I want to see it." "Bring me DeLuca's original ledger." Avery glanced at Roman. His expression sharpened. "Where?" she asked. Grant gave her the address of an abandoned Sinclair warehouse near the river. Then he sent a photograph. Maya stood outside her office, unaware that someone was watching from across the street. Avery's breath stopped. "Leave her alone. Bring the ledger by 9 tonight." The call ended. Roman reached for his gun. Avery placed her hand over it. "No. He threatened your family, and he expects you to attack." "He is correct. That is why we do something else." Avery copied selected pages into a false ledger and concealed a recording device inside the binding. She sent her location, Grant's messages, and the evidence package to her attorney. Roman arranged men around the warehouse, but agreed to remain out of sight unless Avery gave the signal. For once, he followed her plan. At 8:55, Avery entered the warehouse alone. Grant waited beneath a hanging industrial light. Victor Kane stood beside him with 2 armed men. Grant smiled when he saw the ledger. "You always did come when someone made you feel responsible." Avery held the book against her chest. "You used my credentials. You made it easy. You stole from the Sinclairs. I built something for myself. You built nothing. You moved money between men more powerful than you and called it ambition." His smile disappeared. Victor stepped forward. "The ledger." Avery did not move. Grant circled her slowly. "Seeing you with Roman was almost funny. A woman I discarded hanging on the arm of a man everyone fears." Avery looked at him. "You were angry. I was embarrassed. Because you wanted me back." Grant laughed. "No. Because he made people think I had lost something valuable." The final illusion broke cleanly inside her. Grant had never regretted losing her. He regretted the possibility that others might believe she was worth keeping. Avery's voice remained calm. "I did not become valuable when Roman kissed me." Grant's eyes narrowed. "You simply became incapable of pretending I wasn't." He struck the ledger from her hands. It landed open on the concrete. The hidden recorder continued capturing every word. Victor picked it up and checked the pages. Grant moved closer. You still think you are the smartest person in the room? No. Avery looked past him toward the dark windows. I think you are the only one who does. A heavy door opened behind them. Roman entered alone. Grant pulled a gun and caught Avery around the throat. Roman stopped. Grant pressed the barrel beneath her jaw. Drop your weapon. Roman removed the gun from inside his coat. He placed it on the floor. Kneel. Avery felt Grant smile against her hair. Roman lowered himself to the concrete. Grant looked down at him with open triumph. The great Roman DeLuca brought to his knees by a paralegal. Roman's eyes never left Avery, not by her. He placed both hands flat on the floor. For her. Behind Roman, Victor raised his weapon. Avery saw the movement reflected in a broken warehouse window. Roman was unarmed. Grant tightened his hold around her neck. No one noticed Avery's hand sliding toward the small transmitter hidden inside her sleeve. Grant's arm pressed harder against her throat. Victor's weapon remained aimed at Roman's back. Roman knelt on the concrete unarmed, his hands open where everyone could see them. His eyes stayed on Avery. Not on Grant, not on the gun beneath her jaw. On her. Avery understood the question inside his silence. Do you trust your plan? She pressed the transmitter. A metallic click sounded somewhere above them. Grant frowned. What did you do? The fire suppression system exploded to life. Water crashed from the ceiling in violent sheets. Steam burst from an old industrial pipe near the loading bay. The hanging lights flickered once, twice, then went dark. Grant's grip loosened. Avery drove the heel of her shoe down onto his foot. He shouted. She twisted beneath his arm and dropped to the floor as a gunshot tore through the darkness. Roman moved before the echo faded. He lunged toward Victor, caught his wrist, and forced the weapon toward the ceiling. A second shot shattered one of the remaining lights. Gabriel and Roman's men entered through two side doors. The warehouse became a storm of rushing footsteps, shouted orders, and water hammering against steel. Avery crawled behind a support column. Grant had released her. The false ledger lay several feet away, its pages spreading across the wet concrete. Grant saw it at the same moment she did. He ran for it. Avery reached out, but his hand closed around the cover first. You thought you could trap me. His voice was ragged with fury. He shoved her backward and ran toward the loading bay. Avery struck the floor hard enough to lose her breath. Roman turned at the sound. Avery. She raised one hand. I'm fine. Victor swung at Roman with his free fist. Roman blocked the blow and drove him against a metal railing. Avery pushed herself up. Grant was disappearing through the steam with the ledger. The recorder inside it held his confession. She followed him. Cold air struck her as she emerged near the river entrance. The loading bay opened onto a narrow service road beside the dark water. Rusted containers stood in rows beneath the rain. Grant tore through the ledger as he ran. He stopped beneath a security light and stared at the pages. The numbers were false. The accounts led nowhere. He turned toward Avery. You gave me a fake. She slowed several yards away. You gave me a fake relationship. It seemed appropriate. His face twisted. Sirens sounded in the distance. At first they were faint. Then they grew louder. Grant looked toward the road. What did you do? I sent everything to my attorney before I came here. You are bluffing. The emails, the transfers, the access logs, your statement, the recording inside that ledger. Grant looked down. For the first time, fear replaced anger. He ripped the cover open and found the recording device. The red light was still blinking. He threw it onto the ground and crushed it beneath his shoe. Avery did not move. It already transmitted the audio. Grant stared at her. You always were stubborn. No, I was patient. He stepped closer. Avery held her ground. I waited 3 years for an explanation from you, she said. I thought understanding why you left would make me feel whole again. You were never built for the life I wanted. And you were never brave enough to build one yourself. His jaw tightened. You think passing an exam makes you important? No. You think DeLuca makes you important? Avery's voice remained calm. No. Then what changed? She looked at the man who had once reduced every dream she carried into a flaw. I stopped asking you to tell me what I was worth. Grant raised the gun. Avery had not seen him pull it from beneath his coat. The barrel pointed at her chest. The sirens were closer now. Rain ran into Grant's eyes, but he did not blink. You ruined everything. You stole from people who trusted you. I earned that money. You moved numbers on a screen. I built connections. You attached yourself to wealthy families and powerful men. That is not building, that is climbing. Grant stepped forward. You always hated ambition. I hated what you became when ambition required someone else to be smaller. A second figure emerged from behind a shipping container. Vanessa. Her cream coat was soaked through. Her hair clung to her face, and the diamond ring was still missing from her hand. Grant turned the gun toward her. What are you doing here? Vanessa stopped several feet from Avery. I gave the police your emails. Grant stared at her. You had no right. My father used me. You used me. I am finished asking either of you for permission. You do not understand what you have done. I understand exactly what you wrote. Vanessa's voice trembled, but she did not look away. You said marrying me would secure your position. You called me the final step. Grant's mouth hardened. That was business. I thought I was your life. You were part of it. Avery recognized the cruelty. The same soft tone, the same refusal to admit that another person had ever mattered beyond usefulness. Vanessa looked at Avery. For 1 second, the two women understood each other without speaking. Grant saw the exchange. His anger shifted. He turned toward Vanessa. Avery moved. She grabbed a loose metal bar from beside the loading bay and swung it against his wrist. The gun flew from his hand. It struck the edge of the dock, spun once, and disappeared into the river. Grant lunged for Avery. Roman reached him first. He came out of the steam like something the darkness had released. One hand closed around the back of Grant's coat. Roman drove him to the ground. Grant struck the concrete on his knees. Roman pulled a second gun from Gabriel's holster as Gabriel arrived behind him. He pressed the barrel against Grant's head. Everything stopped. Even the rain seemed quieter. Grant breathed hard. Then he laughed. It was not confidence. It was desperation wearing the shape of it. This is what you are, he said. Go ahead, show her. Roman's finger rested on the trigger. Grant looked toward Avery. You think he is different from me? Avery's chest rose and fell. Roman's face held no hesitation. Grant continued. He sees something he wants and takes it. He lies. He controls. He calls it protection. How long before he decides your little career is inconvenient? Roman pushed the barrel harder against his skull. Grant winced, then smiled again. If he kills me, you will know. Roman's voice was almost too quiet to hear. You threatened her family. I exposed you. You placed a gun against her throat, and now you are about to prove every word I said. Roman's finger tightened. Avery stepped closer. Gabriel looked at her. Avery, stay back. She did not. Roman heard her approach, but kept his eyes on Grant. Avery stopped beside him. If you do this now, he still controls what you become. Roman did not move. Grant's smile faded. Avery looked down at Roman. He wants your anger to make the decision for you. He tried to kill you. Yes. He framed you. Yes. He threatened Maya. Yes. Roman finally looked at her. Rain ran down his face. There was no distance left in his expression, only rage and fear. He does not get another chance. He will not. You cannot promise that. No. Avery's voice softened. But I can tell you what I need. Roman's eyes stayed on hers. I need him alive long enough to answer for everything. I need the truth in a courtroom where he cannot change it. I need my name cleared by evidence, not by the fear of yours. Grant swallowed. Roman lowered the weapon by an inch. Avery continued. If you kill him, he becomes another secret buried beneath your family name. If you let him face what he did, he becomes proof that he never owned any of us. Roman looked at Grant. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then Roman removed the gun from Grant's head. Police vehicles entered the warehouse yard. Blue and red lights spilled across the containers. Officers poured from behind open doors with weapons raised. Gabriel lifted both hands. Roman placed the gun on the wet pavement and stepped away from Grant. Grant twisted toward him. You think this makes you better? Roman looked down at him. No. Officers pulled Grant to his feet and secured his wrists. Roman's voice remained cold. It makes her free. Victor was brought from the warehouse moments later, blood on his mouth and restraints around his hands. He saw Grant and began shouting. Grant shouted back. Each accused the other of planning the fraud. Each offered names. Each tried to survive by sacrificing the man beside him. Avery watched them destroy their alliance before the police vehicles had even left the yard. Vanessa stood near her with both arms wrapped around herself. A detective approached and guided her toward a waiting car. Before she left, Vanessa turned to Avery. "I am sorry." Avery looked at her. This time the apology did not feel like a request for immediate forgiveness. It felt like the beginning of accountability. "I know," Avery said. Vanessa nodded and walked away. Roman remained several feet from Avery. He did not reach for her. He did not tell her to come with him. Water dripped from his coat. Blood marked one side of his hand where Victor's weapon had cut him. Avery crossed the distance. "You listened." Roman looked toward Grant's departing vehicle. "I nearly did not, but you did. For you." Avery shook her head. "No." His expression changed. "You did it because you chose not to become the man he needed you to be." Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. It was a small movement. For him, it was surrender. The investigation lasted months. Grant Mercer was charged with fraud identity theft evidence, tampering conspiracy, and unlawful access to protected records. Victor Kane accepted a deal in exchange for testimony against Grant and Richard Sinclair. The agreement did not save him from prison. It only changed the number of years. Richard Sinclair resigned from every company bearing his family name before federal agents arrived at his home. Vanessa cooperated fully with investigators. She ended the engagement in a written statement that contained no mention of heartbreak, only facts. Avery respected that. Palmer and Briggs cleared her name after the security footage from the restaurant showed Grant near her belongings on the night her access card was copied. Mr. Briggs called her into the same conference room where Roman had first requested her. "We would like you to return." Avery looked through the glass at her old desk. The boxes had been unpacked. Her files were back in place. For years, that desk had represented safety. Now it looked like a room she had already outgrown. "I will finish the cases I was working on," she said. "Then I'm leaving." Mr. Briggs removed his glasses. "Why? Because I spent too long helping powerful firms decide whether ordinary people deserve to be heard. That is what this firm does. Sometimes." He did not argue. Avery worked through her final month, then returned to studying. She spent mornings reviewing evidence rules, afternoons assisting her supervising attorney on selected cases, and nights in the same small apartment where she had once promised herself she would not cry. Roman did not disappear. He also did not force himself into her life. He sent coffee during long study sessions, but only after asking which kind she wanted. He waited outside the library when she finished late, but he remained across the street until she waved him over. He told her when security followed her. Sometimes she told him to send them away. Sometimes she did not. Trust did not return in one dramatic moment. It returned through details. A truth given before she demanded it. A question asked instead of a decision made. A kiss delayed until she said yes. Roman also began changing the organization he had inherited. He turned over Victor's illegal accounts and closed the remaining smuggling routes connected to the port. Several older members of the DeLuca family resisted. One disappeared from Chicago. Another was arrested. Roman never gave Avery a complete account of every confrontation. He stopped pretending silence was the same as honesty. When she asked directly, he answered. Some answers frightened her. She stayed only when staying remained her choice. In February, Avery sat for the Illinois bar exam. Roman drove her to the testing center. He did not wish her luck. He knew she hated luck being credited for work. Instead, he handed her a coffee. "You know the law." Avery took it. "Evidence still hates me. Then make it afraid of you." She smiled. When the results arrived months later, Avery opened the email alone in her apartment. She read the first line. Then she read it again. Her hands began shaking. She called Maya first. Maya screamed loudly enough to make Avery pull the phone away from her ear. Then Avery called Roman. He answered immediately. "Are you safe?" She laughed through tears. "That is your first question. It is always my first question." I passed. Silence. Avery frowned. "Roman, I heard you. Then say something." His voice was lower when he answered. "I knew you would. You could sound more surprised. I watched you study rules that were written to confuse people. The exam never had a chance." Avery closed her eyes. The words settled into a place Grant had once filled with doubt. 6 months later, Avery opened Collins Legal Advocacy in a narrow office near downtown. Her practice focused on wage theft, workplace coercion, and employees threatened by corporations with more money than conscience. The first week, an anonymous donation arrived large enough to cover a year of operating expenses. Avery returned it. The next morning, Roman appeared carrying a smaller check. The donation came publicly from the DeLuca Freight Foundation. Every source was documented. Every condition was written clearly. Avery reviewed the paperwork. No hidden terms, no ownership, no expectation that I answer your calls during business hours. Roman considered it. That condition was rejected by counsel. Avery looked up. I am counsel. That explains the problem. She accepted the check. He kissed her only after asking. Maya and Daniel held their wedding reception at the same River North restaurant where Avery's life had turned 3 different directions in a single evening. The chandeliers were unchanged. The white flowers were different. Avery wore the green dress again. She had altered it slightly at the waist and replaced the old buttons at the back. When she entered, she did not see the dress as armor. She did not see Grant's watch, Vanessa's diamond, or the faces that had once watched her struggle to speak. She saw Maya running toward her in a wedding gown. She saw Daniel laughing beside the bar. Then she saw Roman near the windows. He wore black. Of course he did. The room still noticed him. Avery no longer measured herself through that attention. She crossed the floor because she wanted to. Roman met her halfway. You are late, he said. I wanted to give everyone time to admire the room before I arrived. He recognized the line. A smile touched his mouth. You look beautiful. So do you. I was aiming for dangerous. You can be both. Music softened behind them. Roman reached into his coat and removed a small velvet box. Nearby, conversations faded. Several guests remembered the first night. Avery lifted one eyebrow. You are not about to tell another room you have spent 6 months trying to marry me. 11. That is worse. Roman held the box but did not open it. Then in front of everyone, he asked the question quietly enough to belong only to her. May I kiss you? Avery placed one hand against his chest. Yes, Roman kissed her. There was no rescue inside it, no humiliation, no claim made for another man to witness. Only recognition. When they separated, Roman opened the box. Avery looked down. Her grandmother's silver ring rested inside. The band had cracked during the warehouse confrontation. Roman had found it near the loading bay after the police left. Now it had been restored. Beside it lay a brass key. Avery touched the ring carefully. What does the key open, the office beside yours? She looked up. Roman continued. DeLuca Freight is funding a legal clinic for dock workers, warehouse employees, and drivers. Independent management. Your rules. You rented an office without asking me. I rented an office beside you. I did not rent you. Avery tried to hide her smile. Progress. I have an excellent attorney. She took the key. Around them, the reception slowly returned to life. Roman placed the restored ring in her palm. The first night we met, I told everyone I was waiting for your answer. Avery closed her fingers around the silver band. My answer was never supposed to be about whether you claimed me. No. It was about whether I would choose you. Roman's eyes softened, and Avery rose onto her toes and kissed him once more. I already did. Later, snow began falling outside the restaurant. Avery and Roman stepped onto the sidewalk together. His security waited near the curb at a respectful distance. Roman held out his hand. Avery took it. Then she chose the direction they walked. Roman followed her into the snow. The first kiss had silenced a room. The last one required no audience at all.